and I've filibustered past 9:30, and I apologize to Ollie Howorth for doing that. We bring Ollie. So how was breakfast? So, you changed the jersey behind you. Nicely done.
We got to keep it updated. Otherwise, it looks like I'm kind of keep recording the same exact video over and over again. Or I need to make sure I can show that there's been a difference in time.
All right. So what are you up to today? Are you heading to practices and MD-1s?
Yeah, I think that's a lot of it, depending on kind of availability of transport and such, especially for the training. I find it quite hard to often reach the training of different teams. But yeah, very much we're in build up mode towards the Egypt and Argentina game, and kind of a game that I can't wait for. I think it's going to be a cracker tomorrow.
All right. So since you've opened that door, go ahead and hit me. What are your early thoughts?
I think, look, I'm a huge fan of Argentina. Not in the sense that I like support them or anything, but I think they've shown an ability to manage tournaments and tournament football in a way that no other nation has, and that's why they won the World Cup in Qatar 2022. I think a lot of people looked at the Cape Verde game, which man, heartbroken to see them not win, because I wanted Cape Verde to, but I think a lot of people looked at it and said, oh wow, like this Argentina team isn't that great. But for me, actually, it was a reminder of what they did in 2022, which was beat the Netherlands on penalties, scrape past different teams in the knockouts, lose to Saudi Arabia, and still win the World Cup. So for me, I'm really excited to see them. Egypt, for me, are one of the more interesting nations, because they are a team that kind of have not come out of nowhere, but from an Egyptian perspective, I think if you asked Egyptians maybe 12 months ago, even 8 months ago, how they felt about the national team, they would have said, like, we just don't care, feel so apathetic, we feel so disconnected from them. Now, this is probably the most positive Egyptian football has felt in 15, 16 years. They're a very exciting team. They're not very good at defending, which for me is fun, because I think it means that the only way they can approach this game is to have a go Argentina and to say, like, we've got to try and attack them, because if we try and defend, if we try and do what, say, Paraguay did to France, we will lose, and we'll lose pretty badly. So for me, I think it sets it up to be quite an interesting and exciting game, because Argentina are not infallible. They're not a dominating team. They're a team that lets you have a chance. And I think Egypt are the type of team that will take that chance, but similarly to Argentina, give the opposition even more chances.
All right. So when it comes to Egypt, we know the shiny object. Obviously, you're sitting there and you're staring at someone like a Mo Salah. Who below the radar should we be focusing on outside of the shiny objects for success to happen for Egypt? We would be looking at blank.
I mean, the kind of standout player of this tournament for Egypt has been Imam Ashur, he scored the goal against Australia, he scored against Belgium. He's a really interesting guy. He came through at Zamalek, one of the massive, there's two huge clubs in Egypt, Al Ahly and Zamalek, arguably the biggest rivalry in world football. You put them right up there with Boca Juniors and River Plate, Barcelona, Real Madrid, the huge rivalry. He came through as Zamalek, then moved to Midtjylland in Denmark, one of these clubs that are so good at developing players. And he was kind of heralded as like the next Mo Salah. He was the superstar. He was this kind of flamboyant, kind of real strong character, a bit of a maverick. And essentially what happened is he really struggled to adapt to life in Denmark, which is very understandable. I mean, Cairo is a city of like 20 million or something. I think in Midtjylland, it's a town of less than 20,000 or something absurd like that. It's a village. And so I think he found it hard adapting, essentially got homesick, struggled to kind of stay focused. And now is back at Al Ahly, which is the other big, huge club in Egypt, has done very well there. And we've been kind of waiting for him to have his come out moment for Egypt. He'd never scored before for Egypt. He had kind of had moments, but he'd never had this, come to the fore. This tournament has all been about him. He's been the superstar. He's been the big player. He's been the one who's come up with the big moments. Against Australia, he probably could have scored another 1 or 2 goals if he didn't wasn't unlucky with defenders blocking it. So for me, if there's one player you want to look at outside of Mo Salah, it's got to be Imam Ashur.
All right. So since you opened the door with Cabo Verde, let's go there. It was the heroes' welcome that they should have gotten, and it was there in just absolute depth of field, and it was really cool to see. When it comes to their progress and continuing to add to what we've seen with them in this tournament? Is it going to be just as simple as saying, keep doing what you're doing, considering what they've done over the last decade to get to this point? How do they proceed to that quote unquote next level, whatever that is in your mind?
Yeah, I think it is as simple as saying keep doing what you're doing, but I guess that is no longer simple. I think when, what has made Cabo Verde so successful is the fact that they are small. The fact that they are, things are simple. And I remember speaking to one of the vice presidents about it, and I kind of asked, like, what's the secret to your success? And he was like, it's the fact that we only have 7 full-time staff, and it means that we have to do everything. If vice president is picking up, the balls at training. The other vice president is doing translation at an event because they don't have a proper guide to do translation. And they're really, really small, tight knit, humble group. I'll give you an example. Is when I went to Cabo Verde to cover their qualifiers to the World Cup, when they beat Eswatini and qualified for the World Cup, a few days before the game, I wandered into their federation offices just to kind of check it out, to be like, what's going on here? So I wandered in, asked the receptionist, just trying to chat to them. And then this guy walks past and they're like, oh, you should speak to him. He's the president. So the president of the Football Federation was there. And this is the same day that they were playing an away match in Libya. So I think for me, that tells you something. The fact that if the president doesn't want to travel with the team, I think for me, that's already a huge bone in his favor. He's not there for the cameras. He wants to be at home working. We chatted for a bit. He then gave me a lift back to the guest house I was staying in. I can't think of any football federation who would just offer to give a random journalist a lift in his car. And so I think that's for me where you see the successes of Cabo Verde. And the one thing that they've lacked often is infrastructure and resources. They've got a bit more infrastructure now. They've built a few training centers. They've got a stadium that they can use full time. Now they're going to get a lot more resources because they'll have made, $20+ million off the back of this World Cup. For me, the question is, can they continue that excellence? Can they continue to work and operate like that with more scrutiny, with a bigger budget, with more eyeballs, and with more people trying to get their slice of the pie? If they can keep doing what they're doing and just keep scaling it up, because there's a lot of talent out there that are from the Cabo Verdean diaspora. There's a lot of talent on the islands. If they can keep doing what they're doing, they will be successful. They will keep growing. But keeping on doing what they're doing, it will be a challenge.
I have 2 coaches and another team in my rundown. And if I've forgotten any news when we're done with those 3 topics, feel free to jump in and sit there and go, John, you forgot this, you moron. Carlos Queiroz comes in, I want to say 71 days before the tournament, and sends and helps Ghana into the depths that they got through this time. But then Carlos Queiroz, after the loss, he's like, yeah, peace out, I'm done. When you look back at this sprint of Carlos Queiroz that might have been 3 months in its entirety, wasn't necessarily a surprise how he got things orchestrated. It was going to be defense first. He's going to have a lot of low scoring matches, and you're going to have to be the one to blink in these staring contests. When you look at what he was able to do in basically a 3-month period, what sticks out?
Yeah, 100%. Look, that's what Carlos Queiroz does. He is that kind of coach. He is not someone who's going to get you playing good football. He's not going to be someone who gets you playing attacking football. My biggest memories of him are 2021 AFCON when he was the Egypt coach and he got this miserable Egypt team all the way to the final, and they were dreadful to watch. The worst AFCON in terms of quality of football ever, but he got them to the final. He got sent off in the semifinal for complaining with the ref, and he was held as a national hero because of it, because he's very good at that. He's very good at tapping into a national psyche. He's very good at implementing this defensive structure and this us versus them mentality. You saw how quickly he won over the Ghanaian public. So he only ever signed a contract until the end of this World Cup. And then there maybe was scope to extend it, but that was never really on the cards, particularly from his side. And I think he came in, did as well as he could, because I'll be honest, coming into this tournament, I thought Ghana would get knocked out in the group stage. I thought they would draw or lose to Panama. I had no hope for this team because behind the scenes, they're a bit of a mess. And he even said that in his parting statement. He kind of said, look, success in Ghana is not only going to have to come off on the pitch, but it's going to have to come off the pitch. And I think that's where Ghana are as a nation. And so actually, while I think Ghanaians are a little disappointed by the fact that they kind of just didn't lay a glove on Colombia in the knockouts, for me, even the fact that they got to the knockouts was a huge surprise and a success, especially from Queiroz' point of view.
So then, who do you think they chase after for Queiroz's replacement? Do you have any kind of, and it might be a name, it might just be a philosophy. What are you thinking here for a successor?
Yeah, look, we're not 100% sure. They've kind of they've played around with a few people. The most popular choice at prior to the World Cup, or prior really to the AFCON, was a guy called Tom Samfiet, who had done brilliant work at the Gambia, and then had done fairly well at Mali. I think he was put off to most Ghanaians because in the last AFCON with Mali, although he did pretty well, he reached the quarterfinals where they lost to Senegal. They played even worse football than Ghana did at this World Cup. They were so negative. They were so miserable to watch. They were so defensive. And I think a lot of Ghanaians felt that's not what we want, because Ghana is a country that prides itself on playing really good football, that prides itself on, being an iconic team. Their nickname is the Brazilians of Africa. I know Ashraf Hakimi said that Moroccans are called that in Africa. They're not. Only in Morocco are they called that. In the rest of the continent, Ghana are the Brazilians. And so I think that's where they ran into the issue. Look, hiring coaches has been a huge problem for this federation. Time and time again, they seem to get the decisions wrong. They seem to bring in the wrong people. I think Carlos Queiroz is probably their one success of this current federation, this current administration. So I think what they should be doing is they should be trying to replicate what their neighbors Nigeria have done really well, which is bring in a young African coach, a guy called Eric Shell, who is Malian, who coaches Nigeria, and build something, because that's what Ghana have not been able to do. They have not been able to build something. And I think that's what they need to do, is they need to bring in a young, competent coach who actually wants to build something with Ghana, because there are the pieces there. This is not a terrible team. It's not the 2016. It's not the 2010 team. It's not the 2014 team, but it's not a bad team. And they should qualify for the next AFCON, and they should be saying, look, we should be getting to those quarterfinals again. Yes, we're not amongst the elite, but we should start building towards joining the elite of African football once again.
Our friend Ali Howorth and his must subscribe Substack hanging out with us here. When 9 of 10 teams from a particular federation make it in, we continue to have discussions about said federation and how things are going. You mentioned how things are train wrecks, dumpster fires, and what have you. And this particular topic that I'm going to bring up might be insulting to both train wrecks and dumpster fires. Hervé Renard lasts the sum total of 18 days. He didn't even want to deal with that mess after he was done and after they got eliminated and blown out. It's not necessarily a surprise, even though that I believe they had talks with Hervé Renard about hanging out after and taking them through the next cycle, but he didn't want to have anything to do with what's going on there in Tunisia, and he's out the door.
Yeah, 100%. Look, Hervé Renard would definitely not want to stay at Tunisia. He has very, very good reputation on the continent because of his exploits with Zambia and Cote d'Ivoire. He's the only coach to won the AFCON with 2 different nations. And in fact, prior to the tournament, he was in talks with Senegal because they hadn't given their coach Pape Thiaw a new contract ahead of the tournament. And Pape Thiaw ahead of the tournament said, his agent spoke to the federation and said, look, if you don't give him a new contract, we'll walk, and you'll go to the tournament without the World Cup. And actually, Senegal turned around and said, actually, we won't, because we've been speaking to Hervé Renard already to take over, which, speaks to, some of the issues in the Senegalese federation. Look, Tunisia is a mess from a footballing perspective. I think there's a few things we need to bear in mind. Is Tunisia is a tiny country, 12 million people. And they have consistently outperformed that status as a tiny nation. They have qualified, I think, for every single AFCON since 1994. No other country has done that. 17 tournaments in a row that they've qualified for that. They also qualified for more World Cups than any other African nation in the 21st century, which, again, given how difficult the African qualifiers have been traditionally up until this tournament, is an incredible achievement. But there is a lot of issues behind the scenes. They've been accused of rampant corruption in the federation. The National League is really struggling. And I think from a Tunisian perspective, that is a big deal. Some nations like Senegal have been very good with their national team whilst being bad domestically with their league football. Tunisia is not like that. They have a very, very established, very, very important league with 4 huge teams: Espérance, Stade Tunisien, Club Africain, Sfaxien, and they are a country that's very proud of their national football league. And when they are doing the best, it's when their big teams are doing well. The best kind of period of Tunisian football was the 2000s when they won the AFCON, their only AFCON title. And that was at the same time when you had Esperance doing really well in the Champions League, Sfaxien doing well in the CAF Confederation Cup. So Tunisian football is in huge need of a reset. It's in huge need of reform. And if they don't, I think this will be the peak, and this nation will only just start backsliding into kind of anonymity from an African perspective.
And you mentioned my third topic, and it has to do with Senegal. And I'm going back to a story from our friends at RMC a handful of days ago and translated. So I'm going to have everybody bear with me here. Headline: Flight canceled, players stranded. Senegal's journey ends in a nightmare. Turns into a fiasco, overturned by Belgium after you're up 2-0 and you end up losing. Then you're trying to get out of town. Aftermath of the competition, according to RMC Sport, is just as eventful. According to information from D Sports, the return of the delegation marked by significant disorganization, a consequence of the cancellation of the special flight supposed to bring the Lions of Teranga back home, expected at the airport late Thursday night. The plane never departed as no aircraft were available. Source told local media, quote, players went to the airport, but after waiting for hours, there were no flights available. They eventually returned to their hotel. Journalists claim government canceled the plane that was supposed to bring the players and staff back. Quote, the ministry as a state entity didn't take responsibility as it did during the Africa Cup of Nations. This is a source to D Sports. This is linked to the changes that have taken place within that department. So the departure was disorganized. Some able to leave. Papa Gay, Edouard Mendy, Maury Diaw, Jacobs, Idrissa Gueye, and Koulibaly. Others were stuck in the hotel late last week waiting to leave in coming hours. Do you have any kind of an update here?
Yeah, I think they have. Most of them have left. Again, not all together, which I think is the huge shame, because these guys should have gone back to Dakar. They should have kind of not celebrated, but had a chance to meet with people, because that's such a rare thing that we get in international football, and it's something that they've kind of been denied. But a lot of these Senegalese players don't want to go back. They don't want to go back to Senegal. They're fed up with the federation. They're fed up with the Ministry of Sport. They're fed up with the institution. And Senegal are a perfect example where, in some elements of football, they have nailed it in terms of development, in terms of working with private academies. They have been the best of the best in Africa. And that is why they have arguably the best squad. They have some of the most talented players. They've been so good at that. They've also been very good at recruiting from the diaspora. But they, as a federation, have continually let down their team in terms of the way that they manage them. And yeah, I already mentioned how Pape Thiaw didn't even have a contract coming into this tournament. That contract was signed 5 hours before the Norway match. So he coached the game against France without a contract, which is crazy. And again, the Norway one, he didn't get to sign that contract until him and his agent threatened the federation by saying, I'm not going to show up to the Norway game. I'm not going to come if you don't give me a contract. And for me, that is where this team has been criminally let down. You had the fact that they didn't have their head chef with them. So you had players ordering fast food, in their hotel, and, delegates of the federation who'd paid using federation funds to bring their family members across to the World Cup to stay with the team, which a lot of the team kind of thought was kind of strange. The fact that the players themselves still haven't been paid their bonuses from the AFCON win, despite the government confirming that they have sent the money to the federation. So again, Senegal in no way, shape, or form in the same position as Tunisia, because Senegal have the ingredients there to still be the best team in Africa. If this was a well-run team and a well-run federation, for me, they would still be in this tournament, and they would still be flying high. They would be pushing every single team they play with alongside Morocco, because I think in many ways Senegal are, as we saw in the AFCON, are just as good, if not better than Morocco when they get things right. Unfortunately, unlike Morocco have been able to do everything off the pitch right. They have phenomenal infrastructure, amazing facilities. They take care of everything. Senegal haven't been able to do that, and that is ultimately what's letting down this team. And until this federation changes, the government even sent the president's office sent an emissary to the Senegalese camp, essentially to look after them, to be like, we need a grown-up in this room to make sure that the federation is behaving themselves. Like, the president's office had to send someone. So it kind of just goes to show you how, incompetent a lot of the people running Senegalese football are. And it's such a shame, because it lets down this immensely talented group of players.
Yep. And we are going to be keeping an eye on all of that, plus the Morocco match, which is going to be, I believe you're going to be in the air heading back. Is that the time frame here with you?
I'm hoping to arrive, I think, back in the UK just before the game. So I'll probably kind of whip it out on my phone before I can get home.
Yes. So Thursday, 2100 hours local time. France, Morocco in Foxborough, a place that you've been and you have an incredible admiration for, especially for their heating and air conditioning systems. So we will be seeing you next couple of days, and then we know that you're heading out of town. So thank you for coming on this morning, my friend. I know that you've got a jet, so you can try and find a way to get up to Kennesaw and to Marietta to catch up on a couple of practices with Argentina and Egypt, and we will see you downtown. You're gonna be at the MD-1s, right?
Hopefully, I've still got a lot of work I need to get done here before I can get out. But hopefully, I'll get out and be able to make it there in time.
All right. So if we see you at the MD-1s, we see you there. Otherwise, we will see you noontime tomorrow. So it'll be lunch with Ali Howorth. Hit the promo. Where can folks get your stuff?
As always, you can find me on all my socials, Ali Howorth on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok, as well as on Substack and YouTube, Ali's African Football.
And that is where you need to be kept up to date with everything going on in a very, very busy confederation. As always, my friend, great to have you here. Glad you've been spending a lot of time in Decatur, home of Decatur Watch Fest and all the stuff that's been going on here in Atlanta. We will be seeing you either later today in person or tomorrow at Atlanta Stadium. Be safe, my friend. Thanks for all the intel.
Likewise. Thanks so much.
There he goes, Ali Howorth. And it's always great to catch up with him and get the education. I even broke out my Algeria, Kansas T-shirt today.